Hi there, this is Dr. Joanna of Earth from Earth to Spirit, and I am here to tell you about one of my favorite superfoods today. It is none other than broccoli. So broccoli is something that we have known for ages to be a super potent medicinal food. Your grandmother always told you, eat your broccoli, it's good for you. Your mother always told you, eat your broccoli, it's good for you. And they were onto something. Boy, were they onto something. The science has been showing now the very magical capacity that certain compounds inside of broccoli has for affecting what's turned on and off in your body, for affecting what's called your epigenetic expression, for activating antioxidant pathways throughout your body, for activating detoxification pathways throughout your body, and for activating certain genes that suppress tumor growth and tumor formation, as well as for inhibiting the action of viruses in our body. So casting out the power that viruses have over us. And this has been shown for a number of different viruses. Some of the studies include demonstrating that the extract of the broccoli leaf is effective for keeping influenza A virus from being able to attach to the cells of a human. And basically, whenever a virus is going to have action in the body, it has to actually attach to the cells as the first step. It has to get to the kind of cells that it likes to attack, and then it has to attach to the cells. It has to trick the cells into bringing it into the cell, and then it's within the nucleus of the cell that it actually replicates, uses our machinery to allow itself to replicate, and then it explodes the cell, kills the cell, and spreads out all over the body. And so broccoli leaf extract has been shown to stop that step of it actually being able to attach to the human cell that it's attempting to enter. So that's for flu A. Additionally, there's a compound inside of broccoli known as indole-3-carbinol, which has been shown to be really effective against herpes simplex virus, both type 1, which is typically associated with cold sores, and type 2, which is typically considered an STD. And indole-3-carbinol actually inhibited or stopped the replication of the herpes simplex virus, effective at 99.9%. So that's another one of those super antiviral compounds that's prevalent in broccoli, and it's present in raw broccoli. Now, indole-3-carbinol may not always be brought into the bloodstream. It actually is in the digestion process. It's converted into a number of other compounds. It's actually converted into a compound that's known as DIM, which has also been shown to have anti-cancer effects. But there is argument about whether indole-3-carbinol is brought into the bloodstream in any dose. However, that effectiveness against herpes simplex virus was demonstrated very clearly inside of Petri dishes. There's a whole PhD thesis that was written on it, and a series of papers and a patent, and etc. And then there's another compound that is perhaps one of the most studied molecules in the last 15 years or so, because it is so potently medicinal, and that is called sulforaphane. So sulforaphane has been shown to have a number of anti-cancer effects and tumor suppression effects, and it also has been shown to be an antiviral. It was tested in a petri dish with 6 strains of different coronaviruses, including some of the ones that were really popular in the last few years. Coronaviruses are kind of very large viruses compared to a lot of the flu ones and others, and they can be really tricky to stop because of their structure and such. But sulforaphane kind of stopped the replication of these 6 strains of that type of virus. And then that's just in a petri dish. What happens in a petri dish isn't always the same as what happens in the body. But they did actually administer sulforaphane to mice. So they had mice that were given sulforaphane and then mice that were not given sulforaphane, and both groups were then introduced to the virus through a nasal injection, they were given that specific virus that we really talked about for 2020 and 2021 and 2022. And the ones who had been given the sulforaphane first and taken that as what you call a prophylactic administration, so before the development of the infection, the ones that had been taking the sulforaphane had a much lower amount of the virus or viral load found in their lungs. They had a much lower viral load or amount of the virus found in their upper respiratory system, which is saying that the virus wasn't able to replicate and go as far. And then they also had a lot less damage, actual damage to the lung injury. And they also had a different response by the immune system, what we call cytokines, which are these immune molecules, immune messenger molecules that are sent throughout the immune system and can be played by the virus to create a huge inflammatory state and can do a lot of damage to the system when they're overactive. And the ones that were given that sulforaphane before infection had a much better immune response without that hyperactive and really damaging immune effect called the cytokine storm. So it was shown not just in the Petri dish, but actually in live animals. I hate that they do things like that to live animals, but there you have it. And it gives very definitive proof that what grandma knew without having to torture mice was true. Your broccoli is so good for you. So I have worked with broccoli for the last 10 years as an antiviral. In fact, in about 2013, I was at the lowest point in my health. I had severe inflammation in my body, gut pain, digestive issues, and viral attacks that I couldn't suppress and I couldn't control. And if I would fall sick and remain sick, or at the very first sign of infection, I started working with broccoli to basically just whip it out, get it out of there. And whether that was, by what mechanism that was effective, I can't say for certain, but I can say that it was really, really helpful for me. And I would kind of just go into a place where I would consume a lot of raw broccoli. I would rest and not be too active for, 6 hours or something like that. Kind of calm myself, do a little bit of kind of mindfulness and relaxation and release. And I wouldn't eat any grains because grains tended to exacerbate things, whereas just these highly dense sources of nutrients coming into my body with a little bit of mindfulness and rest, and the virus didn't stand a chance in my experience. So let's dive a little deeper into sulforaphane and what we know about it. We just talked about that antiviral capacity, which was shown both in the Petri dish and in the mice. But sulforaphane has also been shown to stop the development of what's called amyloid beta plaques, which are essential in the progression of Alzheimer's disease. So the study that really showed this was on mice that were genetically engineered so that they basically progress to form Alzheimer's disease at a fairly young age for mice. And so as they age, they become extremely deficit in their mental functioning, in their memory, in their spatial recall. And sulforaphane was administered to this variety of mice, and rather than continuing to develop the Alzheimer's disease that is typical of that strain of mice, they actually did not develop the Alzheimer's disease. They actually showed normal cognitive function where they had good spatial memory reasoning, good memory at the same level as healthy mice. And the way that it did this and stopped that Alzheimer's progression in its tracks is by actually inhibiting the formation of what's called amyloid beta plaques. Now, amyloid beta plaques can really disrupt systems in the body. They form effectively when you have proteins that form the wrong shape, and they're called denatured proteins. Proteins have this complex three-dimensional shape that has to be just right for it to function properly as intended. And if our body's not in a great state of health, these proteins degrade. And now when our body does have certain healing properties activated from the genetic level, our body's we're able to actually reshape these proteins and correct the shape of these proteins and or remove them if they're not able to be fixed. And in doing so, we stop the amyloid beta plaques from forming, because the amyloid beta plaques are basically formed of these misshapen proteins that then gunk up and stack up and form these plaques in our body. Now, amyloid beta plaques are associated with Alzheimer's, they're associated with dementia and reduced cognitive or mental functioning. They're also associated with certain types of pain and chronic joint pain, and then can also cause cardiac issues if you're having these amyloid beta plaques form in the body. So sulforaphane stopped that Alzheimer's progression dead in its tracks for these mice that otherwise would have experienced that by changing that amyloid beta progression. The sulforaphane has also been shown to inhibit blood clots that can be associated with strokes and cardiac arrest or heart attacks. It's also been shown to be super anti-inflammatory. It reduces, administration of sulforaphane has been connected with the reduction in a number of inflammation markers in the body. And it also activates detoxification pathways that are essential for removing mercury and heavy metals. It's again involved in basically what's called phase 2 liver detoxification, where you have to open the liver up for this detoxification process in order to remove heavy metals from the body. Besides these different demonstrated effects from sulforaphane, we know of dozens of ways that it actually affects the expression of our genes, turning on and activating certain genes for constant frequent reading and constant frequent expression in the body, and turning off other genes in order to rebalance the health in a much better place. So a few of the ways that it actually changes our gene expression, many of them are connected with cancer and with the expression of cancer cells, and then also many of them are connected with ways that we repair damage to our DNA and other processes to keep our cells healthy. So here are just a few of them. We know that sulforaphane has been shown to activate multiple genes in our body that are called tumor suppressor genes. They suppress the growth of tumors and the congregation of tumors. And that's been shown in lung cancer cells. It's been shown in breast cancer cells. It's been shown in colon cancer cells and also in cervical cancer cells. So this has been consistent over a number of different cancers. Sulforaphane has been shown to activate these genes that suppress the tumor activity. It also activates genes that code for the antioxidant activity, opening up those antioxidant pathways. So antioxidants basically go and neutralize these oxidative species which can do damage to our DNA and can do damage to the cell membrane. So we all have some level of oxidative species present in our body, and that's fine as long as we have sufficient amounts or enough of these antioxidants to go and neutralize them and keep damage from progressing. So it actually opens up certain genes that allow us to produce and have that activity occurring in a good way. It also activates that detoxification pathway essential for removing mercury and heavy metals, and a number of other detoxification pathways as well. It's also been shown to induce cell cycle arrest or cell death in prostate cancer cells and in breast cancer cells. There's been a demonstration of decreased tumor formation and decreased growth of melanoma stem cells also. So in skin cancers, where you're giving sulforaphane into the skin cancers in a petri dish, you're seeing less growth of the tumors and less growth of the melanoma stem cells. It also protects healthy cells against cell death. that is induced by ethanol that the cancer cells will spill out into the neighboring environment. So those are all genetic ways that it actually changes how our genes are expressing so that we can be in a state of better health. On this channel, we're going to talk about that a lot, about how we change the version of who we are, how we change the script in our body so that we can be a step above, so that we can be the healthiest version of ourselves, the most vibrant version of ourselves, the most full version of ourselves, so that we can experience joy and connect that throughout our body and life force throughout our body. So raw broccoli has a lot of power with the prevalence of indole 3-carbinol, with the prevalence of other antiviral compounds, with the prevalence of sulforaphane, but there are also certain drawbacks to working with raw broccoli. So raw, mature broccoli is also very, very difficult to digest. Most people don't actually have a digestive system that allows them to digest it without producing a lot of gas, or allows them to digest it and draw in all of those super powerful nutrients. Most people do not digest raw broccoli very well. Additionally, raw, mature, adult broccoli is high in something called oxalates. And oxalates are kind of reduce your thyroid function. So for people who have hyperactive or overactive thyroid, the raw broccoli and the oxalates contained within can actually bring it into a good level if you can monitor that correctly. But for people who have low thyroid function, which more people in this country and in the United States and most of the Western world have low thyroid function, and oxalates will actually bring that down even further and make you in kind of a less healthy state in terms of your energy levels and your thyroid balance. So raw broccoli isn't for everyone. You can, however, get the benefits of raw broccoli in even higher concentration through broccoli microgreens or broccoli sprouts, which have higher concentrations of sulforaphane, which are really easily digested by the digestive system, and which are also very, very low in oxalates. There's effectively no oxalate levels present in the microgreens of broccoli or in the sprouts of broccoli, at least none at a level that would affect anything in a negative way. So broccoli microgreens, broccoli sprouts are really great ways to get that antiviral punch, to get that anti-cancer effectiveness, and also to get the antioxidant properties that broccoli has in a more concentrated form that's much easier to digest. It typically doesn't take very much of the microgreens or of the broccoli sprouts to be effective, and really you can work with just basically garnishing. You can garnish almost anything with some broccoli sprouts or some broccoli microgreens, and it's going to give a pop of color and just this amazing medicinal boost to your life. Now let's also talk about cooked broccoli, because cooked broccoli does have some things that are really special. It does not have the same level of sulforaphane that raw broccoli has. It does not have the same antiviral capacity that raw broccoli has, but it does not have the oxalates, and it's much easier to digest. So cooked broccoli, the oxalate levels are going to come way down, and it's going to be something that can be much more healthy for a much larger group of people, and not have such a deleterious effect on the thyroid function. It's also going to be much, much easier to digest. Cooked broccoli is a lot easier on the digestive system, and while you lose out on some of that antioxidant activity from the sulforaphane, you actually get an increase in the glutathione level, and glutathione is another really, really potent antioxidant. It's an antioxidant that's absolutely essential for that heavy metals detoxification that is called phase 2 liver detoxification. Phase 2 liver detoxification is essential for removing heavy metals. It's also essential in processes that involve cancer and healing from that as well. So you get that added boost from the glutathione. Broccoli is actually one of the highest sources of glutathione, and the glutathione level comes up when you cook it and becomes more bioavailable and more bioactive. Glutathione is only higher in avocado and asparagus. Broccoli is the third most concentrated source of glutathione. So cooked broccoli, very, very good for you for that glutathione content, and it's also going to be nice and digestible and not so disruptive to the thyroid. I like to think of raw broccoli and cooked broccoli as being pretty much two different things, and I'd like to think of the broccoli microgreens or broccoli sprouts as being like the hyper concentrated, like super powered version of this already super powerful medicinal food herb of broccoli. I like to think of the microgreens as being the raw broccoli with a punch, whereas the cooked broccoli is a little bit of a different beast. Both beautiful, beautiful, nutritive beasts. I hope this gives you a newfound love and respect for this vegetable. I hope it also lights you up with a better recognition of the superpowers that are already living within you, with those healing superpowers that exist in our genetic code that can be turned on or that can be turned off. And I hope it stimulates for you creativity in how you think about what you can include in your diet and what you can include in your practice to really start to become that version of you that is healthy, is vibrant, and that is grateful for the amazing magical gifts that the earth has given us for this transformation and this journey that we go on. I would also like to point to some of the talks that Dr. Rhonda Patrick does. You can look her up, Dr. Rhonda Patrick or Found My Fitness. She talks quite a bit about sulforaphane and a lot of the research that has been done concerning sulforaphane and cancer. And then I also would like to point to Jeff Primack, who for the last 20 years at least has been doing these amazing food-based healing courses and books, and he's a resource that I've studied quite a bit, and there are people who've studied it much more than me, but I absolutely very deeply appreciate the work that he's done, and I integrate that into these conversations quite a bit as well, so I want to reference that as well. All right, thank you for joining. May we walk this journey towards better health, and may I send love to you.